I'm Sierra, and I'm going to basically just discuss how a lot of their points just don't necessarily work out in this argument, along with some disadvantages that the affirmative side made a claim about the U.S. Allowing the sale of organs. So what I first wanted to touch back on was discussing more like long-term effects of that donors go through at the very end. So according to the Washington Post, medical journals do not report on the invisible and long-term medical, psychological, and social consequences of selling a kidney. Chronic pain, depression, and suicide, self-hatred, distorted body image, a sense of bodily emptiness and evacuation, anger, regret, isolation, and even physical abuse, battering and forced exile from their native communities. So one important thing with all of this is that if we're still just to go by donations as far as organs, let's see, what am I trying to say? If organs were to be available for sale, we would have more people kind of rushing into the process because they wouldn't really be able to see much past the dollar signs. Others object that people will rush to sell kidneys without a full understanding of the risks involved. But again, at best, this shows we should require would-be kidney sellers to be licensed. Before being allowed to sell, they must pass a test, take a driver's license exam, showing that they fully understand the costs and benefits, because again, it's just touching back on how they really just can't see past the dollar signs. A lot of times, touching back on like the psychological issues, if they don't go through those tests, the person receiving their organs can have long-term issues, because of what was given to them if it's not thorough enough. In a market, even a regulated one, doctors and nurses still would be using their skills to help people harm themselves solely for money. The resulting distrust and loss of professional standards is to a high price to pay to gamble on the hope that a market may secure more organs for those in need. Another issue is that as far as donations go, anyone of wealthy or poor would be seen for a donation. But if organs become available for sale, it's going to be the wealthy people that are going to be available for this first, because they're the ones that can afford it, obviously, opposed to poor people. Sales of kidneys by living vendors is what the term that they're now using instead of donors. This undermines efforts to build robust programs of voluntary unpaid organ donation from living related donors and deceased donors. In country after country, the same phenomenon occurs. Financial incentives crowd out voluntary donation. Kidney patients have no reason to return to relatives, and more important, governments have no need to develop the infrastructure and public support for deceased donation when organs can be obtained from poor strangers. So this is just touching on how basically anyone can be able to donate their organs if they choose to. But again, we should just have more in-depth tests to kind of get them past this. We can see what long-term effects they may cause to the donor. The person receiving the donation. Underground markets run by organ brokers and kidney hunters exploit the desperation of both buyers and sellers. Even regulated systems, such as the ones established by the Ministries of Health in the Philippines and in Iran, rely on independent matchmakers and intermediaries. The result is the collaboration of surgeons and hospitals with local kidney hunters who are unregulated and ply their trade based on deceit and exploitation. Hospitals and transplant teams cannot be left with the responsibility of monitoring the paid donation of living people's organs. So going back, how I'll kind of discuss that there's been a shortage of organ donations. The shortage of organs has led to proposals to lift the prohibition on payment that has been part of the U.S. organ donation law since 1984. But buying organs would be wrong. Aside from being wrong, it would also harm the existing voluntary donation programs and can be ineffective in increasing the supply of organs. There are better ways to increase the number of organs donated than paying for them. So going back to discuss kind of how the black market operates, one issue with going into legalizing the sale of organs is that we'll never really be completely able to diminish the black market. There's always going to be people running out there who know more information than we do, and they have their ways to accomplish these. So there are no guarantees that legalizing kidney sales would end all of the abuses now associated with the black market. She says that in Iran, legal sales have not corrected the problem of the black market, the exploitation of poor people as organ suppliers from middle and upper class recipients. There are all kinds of things being sold in the black market that we don't even want to know about. Organs, I mean, anything you could think of, and it's a huge market system, and that's why they'll never be able to completely diminish it in allowing the legalized sale of organs. Okay, and then just really quickly touching back on the shortfall in organ donors. If we were to maybe implement, reimburse donors' costs for travel, lost wages, medical tests, and related expenses occurring during the screening and recovering from the donation, this would help. This would amount to thousands of dollars and pose a barrier for anyone who wants to help a relative or friend by donating an organ.